What is going on, everybody, as I turn my computer? Welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Got some snow today, and my internet is doing well, so not gonna uncross my fingers or toes. Thursday maybe was an aberration, but yeah, we have a 6-game slate here tonight. It's the last Saturday of the regular season. Regular season ends on Thursday. Playoffs start next Saturday. I can't wait for playoffs. The level of hockey right now is absolute garbage. It is a lot more reminiscent of preseason hockey than end of the regular season hockey. I'm just, the Rangers are driving me nuts. Your Habs are basically in a playoff spot. Helping me break it down in his Mike Madonna jersey. Slim Cliffy, what's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Last night was probably like the first normal night of NHL that we've had in quite some time. Seems like every night there's like 3 types of games. It's like a tight checking 3-2 game, or one team wins 7-0, or it's a 7-5, like 7-6 overtime game or something like that. Like those are the 3 games that exist now. I was obviously watching the Habs last night. You can always tell when it's not going to be your night. I think the Habs were down 3-1, and they got back-to-back power plays, and they got a few like pretty good looks on it too, and they didn't score. And then Ottawa went up 4-1 like a minute after the second power play, and I was like, not going to be our night. They're back on the board here tonight. They're in Toronto. You and I were talking before the show about teams left with something to play for this season. It doesn't necessarily have to be a playoff spot. It can be playoff positioning. Like, Toronto is still trying to lock down first in the division. First in the division in the Atlantic is fairly important because, I think we said on Thursday, the 2 teams that don't win the division are playing each other in the first round. So 2 out of Florida, Tampa Bay, Toronto play each other in the first round. Like, that's pretty brutal. Winnipeg is still, I think they need one more win to lock down first place in the conference. So they would have home ice right through to the Cup final if they could get there. Minnesota, if Minnesota loses tonight, Calgary's only three points back with 2 games in hand, after Minnesota lost last night. So there are still a lot of teams with something to play for. So I would hope we get some pretty good games here tonight. We'll see what happens. Before we get to those breakdowns, we got to shout out Clayton. Clayton took down, I think it was the $3.05 max on Thursday night. Your beloved New York Rangers did the deal for him, putting up a 9 spot against the New York Islanders. He had JT Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley with Shesterkin in net, and then had Los Angeles one with Jordan Spence, Gustav Forsling, one-off defenseman. So shout out Clayton. He had a really good night. Someone in the Discord had a 6-man point parlay. Put, I think it was 50 on it to win $13K.
Jaker.
Yeah, Jaker.
He won $20,000 off 2 separate points parlays.
Yeah. Thanks to the perfectly correlated, Anaheim scored 1 goal, and it was perfectly correlated between Carlson, Killorn, and Cutter Gauthier. So he had a really good night. So yeah, it's a pretty good night in the Discord on Thursday. Hopefully we can have another good one here tonight.
It was funny because Clayton posted in the morning, right? And he puts 5 lineups in. The winning lineup was 2 lines that you touted. I was off the Rangers, which I was beating myself up over because one of the rules I have in DFS for NHL is when you're on the Rangers, you play the Rangers because it's rare for you to like the Rangers. So one of my biggest wins of all time in NHL DFS when you were on the Derek Brassard line, and I was like, this is before we really knew each other, and I was like, this guy hates the Rangers, and he's talking about the Brassard line. I got to play him, and I hit big. Clayton had 5 lineups that night. Obviously, the Rangers Kings. It was the Kings line that you liked, the Kuzmenko line. And then there was like one lineup way over to the left. I was like, that has to be mine. It was just sometimes that's the way it goes with touting. So
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like sometimes a team can score 6 goals, and if it all goes to one line, it doesn't really matter if you're on quote the right team. If you don't have the right players from the right team, it doesn't really matter. But so shout out to Clayton. Hopefully somebody else can do the same here tonight.
Yeah, and we were talking about the Habs game before we shouted out those guys in the chat. They actually didn't play that bad. I watched a lot of that game. I think that's going to be a problem if they do make the playoffs, which they should, is the road games. Because they got the Ridley Grieg line out in good matchups, and that line just absolutely killed them last night.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it on Blue Sky earlier. It's their starts to the games. In the first period, they have I think it's the fourth worst or tied for the third worst goal differential per game in the league. The only two teams worse are San Jose and Seattle. They're tied with Anaheim for 30th by goal differential per game in the first period. If you're starting up, every third game down 1-0 or down 2-0, you're gonna have some pretty bad nights. And last night was one of them. It's a young team. They're still the second youngest team in the NHL. I'm not expecting them to be, the 2011 Boston Bruins or anything like that. But assuming they reach the playoffs, they should clean it up. But no better slump busters than the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And I'm not a big believer in BVP. Just not my thing. But it seems like whenever Montreal's in Toronto, they give them a really good game. But yeah, we should talk about this 6-game slate. Before we do, just wanted to extend a thank you to everyone hanging out with us here on this Saturday afternoon, last Saturday of the NHL regular season. You guys have supported us all season. We do really appreciate it. And if you do want to support us further, you can click that link in the chat, the Stochastic link, and use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off your first week or month of any membership. Obviously, NHL is winding down, but MLB is in full swing. PGA, Masters right now, MMA. There's a really good pay-per-view tonight, so there are plenty of options if you're looking to go premium. There's obviously all the Sims memberships you can do if you have a Stochastic avatar and you want to go full Sims. You can do whatever you want. Just click the link, check it out, and we do really appreciate it. But let's get into this slate. First game of the night, Montreal Canadiens with a 2.5 total, the absolute disrespect. Going into Toronto, the Leafs have a 3.5. Toronto going Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Yarncroc, McMahon, Robertson, Domi. Montreal going Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson, Laine, Newhook, Kapanen. I saw you talking about it this morning. Why the hell is Toronto taking Bobby McMahon off the second line and putting Calle Yarncroc on there? I don't know if you got a definitive answer. I don't know what Berube's thinking really, other than he wants to extend the lineup, but that doesn't even make sense because Calle Yarncroc doesn't do shit offensively, so he's just a guy.
The feeling that I got, a few Leafs fans, one that I talk to fairly regularly, got back to me, is the feeling is that they're trying to get more from the third and fourth lines. The third and fourth lines have generally been pretty bad, and Yarncroc has been also very bad basically since he returned from injury. And I think the thinking is Tavares and Nylander are good enough to carry him and take his negative presence out of the bottom six, put McMahon's positive presence into the bottom six, and then hopefully that'll improve everything, even if it hurts the second line a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
That thinking is what the last Blues coach got in trouble, putting Kerfoot into the top six and dropping whomever down into the bottom six, and now he's coaching the Devils. But anyway, the Toronto top line, 22,400. Again, I have no issue with them as a line. They've been a good line all season. I don't know if I want to spend 22,400 on them, I know Nyes had a hat trick this week and he shut us up for a day, but 30.7 top two stack percentage is large and only 10.9% projected ownership. But like Marner at 7,200 when Nylander is sitting there at 7,600 is tough to play. Matty Nyes at 5,900, like that's not as expensive as we've seen him, but he really should be like low fives if we're talking about what his actual price should be. Like I'm fine with a Matthews one-off here because if they're going to come in relatively lowish owns, like I'm sure Matthews will end up being 15-20%, but I don't mind Matthews here as a one-off. The second line with Yarncroc kind of sucks because they're 17.5, which isn't really that cheap. And I know they're $1,700 cheaper than they would be with McMahon, which would have been 19.2. I would have rather played that line with McMahon at 19.2 than with Yarncroc at 17.5, with them getting 8.5% projected ownership. So, like, for me on the Leaf side, it's probably a one-off Matthews or a two-man Matthews and Nylander since it's a pretty good power play spot. And, Montreal's back-to-back on the road, and it's going to be Dobish in net, who's been fine. But Montembeau's legit been one of the best goalies in the NHL since American Thanksgiving, so it is a downgrade in net. I do like the Leafs power play, guys. I don't think I'll be full stacking anyone. Interesting, like I guess you could go to that third line at 12,100. It's a really good power play spot, so I want to get the big boys in. But if you are going expensive elsewhere, I don't mind a two-man of like Domi Robertson or Robertson McMahon, something like that. But for me, it is Matthews and Nylander who I like the best on the Toronto side. On the Montreal side, they're coming in, their top line's coming in with 2.5% projected ownership. If we're going to sit here and say that Toronto's in a good power play spot, Montreal is also in a good power play spot. The Leafs aren't great defensively. They don't have a good penalty kill. That top line is fully correlated at 18.8. You're getting a $3,600 discount from Toronto one. Now, they obviously don't have Matthews, but like you could argue that Suzuki and Caulfield have been one of the best duos in the NHL over the past few seasons. The top two stack is under 10%, but at 18,800, I'd rather play Montreal 1 than Toronto 2. They are fully correlated. Honestly, if I'm stacking line in this game, my favorite line is Montreal 1. I like the Toronto side better, but I don't think I will be full stacking anything. If I do, it's going to be Montreal 1.
So I'm going to start on the Montreal side. Like, the Toronto top line has generally been fine defensively, and the Toronto goaltending's been pretty good this season, generally speaking. Obviously, they've had some up and down games, but like Stolarz has a .922 save percentage. Like he's been really, really good. It's not a great matchup for Montreal 1. What I will say is that Oliver Ekman-Larsson's not playing tonight, and because of cap restrictions, the Leafs can't call up another defenseman, so they're going with 5 defensemen tonight, which means more ice time for Morgan Rielly, more ice time for Philippe Myers, more ice time for Simon Benoit. I think Berube said he might even send Mitch Marner back for a couple shifts on defense. So, like, for as shaky as defensively as the Leafs can be, things could get worse here tonight with no Ekman-Larsson, who's generally been good for them this year, right? He's been one of their 4 regular defensemen with a positive goal differential. Like he's been good for them. So I don't mind Montreal 1 at 18,800. Here's the thing is like for a short slate, there are a bunch of lines all kind of priced in the similar price range. Like I think there are 9 different lines priced between 17 and 20K.
Yeah.
So, and like this Montreal line is nowhere near the top of the pile. Like we'll get to St. Louis, we'll get to Winnipeg, we'll get to Minnesota, we'll get to Utah. Like that's kind of the problem here is that it's not as if they're kind of priced on their own and, where Toronto 1 is, Montreal would never get that expensive, but just, if they're priced at like 16K or something like that, they'd be one of the few lines in and around that price range. But the problem is like they're priced in with like 8 or 9 different lines, and there's at least 4 that I would or 3 that I'd rather play. Sorry. So kind of out on Montreal 1. Montreal 2, like the Dvorak line, I think is playable. If you do want to fit in basically a Toronto top line or, maybe a Dallas power play. We'll get to Dallas a little bit later. Other than that, you don't really need to go that cheap. So I think I'm kind of out on the Habs in general here tonight. If you want to play like a one-off Suzuki or one-off Line, that's fine. The Leafs still do have a very bad penalty kill. Suzuki gets a lot of ice time. Obviously, we know how Line has been extremely productive on the power play. So like if you do want to do those types of things, I think that's okay. But full stacking, I'm kind of out. If I'm going to full stack anything in this game, honestly, would probably be Toronto 1. Like Montreal defensively, they've been really shaky. They've been relying on really, really good goaltending from Montembeault and Dobish for basically since, for most of the season, but certainly since the Four Nations Cup. I was looking at the top line since the trade deadline, 3 expected goals against. The Dvorak line since the trade deadline, 3.2 expected goals against. I was looking at the Line 2.6 expected goals against since the Four Nations Cup. Like the first and second lines have been really bad. The third and that Line line's been below average. So like they've really struggled defensively. If you're going to play Toronto, they're the only team in that price range. So you'll probably be fairly unique as it is. I would be kind of tempted to like almost make it more expensive and like take out Nyes and put in Nylander or something like that, because this is a good power play matchup for Toronto. Montreal is at 2.8 times shorthanded per game. Since the trade deadline, it is 9th in the league. The Leafs' top power play unit has been very good. So I honestly think I'd play Toronto 1, but take out Nyes and put in Nylander. If you want to take out Marner, put in Nylander for a similar price. I think that's fine. But that's kind of how I would approach it. I honestly think Aaron Kroc is kind of cooked. So I don't really have interest in stacking the second line. I think if anything, I'd dip down to the third line. That line hasn't really been that great offensively. The problem is like they don't get a ton of minutes. And at 12,100, like maybe you can put them with like a Dallas 1 or something like that, but there aren't a ton of lines that you really need a 12K line for. So I think for me, what I have the most interest in this game is Toronto 1, but finding some way to get Nylander in the lineup.
Yeah, we're kind of on opposite sides of this game, but I get your point, right? Because there are a ton of lines in that 17 to 19K range, and we'll talk about more that there's probably three or four that I would rather play the Montreal 1 here, but I don't think you should dismiss Montreal 1 just because and like I don't know what I think it's 27 max. I'd have a little bit. Whatever it is, but whatever. Winnipeg Jets with a 3.6 total heading into Chicago. The Hawks have a 2.3. Winnipeg going Connor, Scheifele, Iafallo, Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton. Chicago going Bedard, Mikheyev, Moore, Teravainen, Nazar, Bertuzzi, Donato, Foligno, Kurashev. I don't think I really have any interest in Chicago here. It's just not a good matchup. Winnipeg can lock up home ice throughout tonight, so they'll have something to play for. I don't know if I'll have any skaters really, like one-off Bedard if you happen to get there, a one-off Nazar. But, I'm not going out of my way to play Chicago here. At least there's skaters. Like, if Sam Rinzel gets into your mix for top power play time, I think he played, over 22 minutes in his NHL debut the other night. So, he's fine. But we'll talk about defensemen at the end. But for the most part, I'm out on Chicago. Winnipeg is interesting. The top line with Iafallo is 18-7, 20.3% top two stack, which is ridiculous. 18% projected ownership. That's a little high for my taste of an Alex Iafallo line. However, this is a really, really good 5-on-5 matchup. The line with Iafallo hasn't been awful, but it's Alex Iafallo. And if you're not spending up for the Leafs, there really isn't a massive spend-up option. And Nikolai Ehlers is only $1,300 more than Iafallo. That would make that Winnipeg line $20K even. And you'd get 3 guys on the power play there. So if I was going to play Winnipeg here, because I don't want to play 18% Alex Iafallo, if he burns me, good for him. I'll register for the 1.7 max tournament tomorrow. I'll put in Nikolai Ehlers for that power play, get some lower owned combination in a high ownership, high total game, and go about my day. Like, if you want to go to that second line, that's fine. I want Kyle Connor in there. So that's why I'd be more likely to leave off Iafallo and add in Ehlers or Perfidi than, leave off Nemestikov and add in Scheifele or add in Connor. Because if you add in Connor, then you have 3 wings, and it would make it a unique build, and that's fine. It's just not something that I will be super open to in single entry. So for me, I'm in on Winnipeg 1, but take off Iafallo and add in one of the other power play guys.
Yeah, I think this is a bad matchup for Chicago, obviously. Winnipeg has the lowest expected goals against and lowest goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 since the Four Nations break. Obviously, they've been one of the best defensive teams all season. I think the one case you can make for playing Chicago here tonight is that I assume Eric Comrie is going to get the start. I don't think they've confirmed anything yet. But this is the Chicago Blackhawks.
And Eric Comrie's had a really good season too.
Yeah, and Winnipeg plays at home to Edmonton tomorrow. So I assume Comrie gets the start. So you're not going to have to face Hellebuck, but the Jets are still a great defensive team. That's kind of the problem. Is Comrie doesn't need to be great to limit Chicago to 1 goal on 21 shots or 19 shots or something like that. You know what I mean? So I do think there should be at least a little bit of interest in the Blackhawks for this reason, is that they're pretty cheap. So if you do want to play a line with a Minnesota, with a Montreal, with St. Louis, with a Utah, something like that, there are options in this game, and there's no ownership, right? Trust me, I know how bad Chicago is, and I know how good Winnipeg is. This is still a Chicago team that is at home, that, Bedard will get 20 minutes, McCabe will get 18, Donato will get 16, Bertuzzi and Teravaino will get 16 to 18, Nazaro will get 17. They'll get decent minutes. And hockey is still a random sport, and there are only 6 games on the board here tonight. So I think I would be more inclined, if I was in that 35 max or whatever that is, to maybe play 1 or 2 Chicago lineups, just because, I'm not just saying they're not carrying any ownership. 0.4% on the Bedard line, 0.5% on the Nazar line, 1.3% on the Donato line. There's no ownership coming in on these guys, and they're at home on a 6-game slate. That's kind of what I'm saying. Is even if this is the worst team in the NHL playing the best team in the NHL, there is more than a 1% chance that they put up 4 goals here tonight. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So in a single entry, I think you can dodge them. If I was playing a bunch of lineups, I would honestly probably go to Teravainen, Nazar, Bertuzzi, just because they're perfectly correlated. Not they have a great power play. It's a great power play matchup, but it's a $13,200 line that is perfectly correlated on the top power play. That's still something. So I think if you want to take out, Teravainen, put in Bedard, do a Bedard, Nazar, Bertuzzi, or Bedard, Nazar, Teravainen, I think that's fine. But I think Chicago too, you have to at least consider, just because it's a 0.5% ownership and it's a 6-game slate and they're cheap. That's it. For me on the Winnipeg side, we're slamming Alex Iafallo. That top line's been good with Alex Iafallo. you gotta hand it to him. At some point, the numbers are what they are. It's like 100 minutes together since Gabriel Velarde went down. 2.9 expected goals, 4.2 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Where the problem has been is on the power play. Like Alex Iafallo is just not Gabriel Velarde on the power play, and that's where their numbers have kind of suffered. Chicago's power play or penalty kill has slid over the last couple months, so I do have some interest in Winnipeg one here. For me, I think it would be more an MME, like in that 17 to 20K price range. There are still a couple lines that I would rather play above them. But for me, I would rather play Winnipeg one. I'll also shout out Winnipeg 3. 2.4 expected goals, 58 shot attempts in their time together since the Four Nations break. They're 11,200. You can play them with Toronto. You can play them with Dallas. You can do those sorts of things. Obviously, it's a great matchup against Chicago. And because the Winnipeg power play's taken a dip since they lost Velarde, I'm not as concerned about playing all the top power play guys as I otherwise probably would have been like a month ago. So I think Winnipeg 3 is certainly in play if you need a cheap stack here tonight. Winnipeg 1 is my favorite line in this game, obviously. But I do think you should consider Chicago 2 because they're also cheap and they're coming in with absolutely no ownership.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the Josh dog barking lock. They're sleeping right now, thankfully. Utah Soakers with a 3 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.4. This is an interesting game because of Pete DeBoer's comments earlier. He said that Harley and Lindell have been playing a ton of minutes since Heiskanen went down, and they're going to try to get them some rest. They also said that there is a flu bug going through the locker room.
And they also called up a defenseman from the AHL. So it's not as if he's just talking about maybe backing off their minutes. Like, it does seem there's a plan to sit at least one, if not both, of Harley and Lindell tonight.
Yeah, we legitimately don't know what the lineup is going to be because there could be guys who are battling a cold or whatever that, who could play, but they're just like, you know what, take the day off, get some rest. It's kind of unfortunate because it's a good power play spot. It's not a great 5-on-5 spot. Like, Utah's been pretty consistent all year defensively at 5-on-5 once they got Dursey and Marino back. Now, Marino's out again, but I think what I would do is, like, I don't want to play Dallas 1 at 19-7. I just don't. Like, just give me more minutes before you price them back up to, like, the Leafs top line. It would be Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment on that second power play unit. They're fully correlated. They've been very good together. It's just I don't know if they're playing. Now, at 13-9, there's probably decent swap. Like, maybe not decent, but like you could swap to the Brett Howden line. There's the Jake Neighbors line.
Yeah, there's lines in St. Louis and Seattle you can swap to.
You could swap to Vancouver if you wanted to. But, like, yeah, there are swaps that you can make that if you're concerned about it, it's not like they're the last game on the slate and you're kind of screwed if they're not playing, right? So I think for me, I would play Dallas too. I'd have a lineup swap ready in case one of them's out. We don't know who's sick. We don't know who's sitting. We don't know anything. Going by everyone's playing except for Harley and Lindell, I think I would still go to Dallas 2 here. I don't have a ton of interest in Dallas 1 at their price in minutes. Dallas 3, they're fine, but they're more expensive than Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment, and so I'm just going to Dallas 2. The Utah side is more interesting to me anyway. I think, like, we're talking about gas cans like Alex Iafallo who have been good. Kyler Yamamoto on that second line since he came up, like, that line has been really, really good. And let's not pretend that Dallas is anything good defensively anymore. And if they have Lindell and or Harley sit, forget about it. And that line is 11,400 coming in at 5% projected. Like, you could do what you want with Kyler Yamamoto. He's min price. So if you don't want to play him, you can leave off Yamamoto, add in, Keller or Genther, and you get a nice power play stack for $15K. You know what I mean? So if you want to go to the Utah top line, I think that is perfectly fine as well. They're in that bevy of teams in the price range between 17 and 19K. They have a 15.5% top two stack, 13.6% projected ownership. Like, I like them. I don't like, obviously there's some other lines in that price range that I like better that we haven't gotten to yet. I do like them. I think I'd rather play them than Montreal 1. But I think what I would do is leave off Cooley and add in Hayton or something like that, make it a power play stack. But I'm completely fine with Utah 1, Utah 2. You want to turn it into a power play stack, cool. But like 55 minutes since Yamamoto came up onto that second line, 4.7 expected goals per 60. Now they're shooting like negative 7%, and that's an issue. But like 90 shot attempts per 60. They're dominating the play. And none of these Dallas lines are really good defensively. So I think if you're spending up for some sort of Toronto power play, this Utah second line would be on the top of the list to fit in with them.
I don't like just crossing teams off on a 6-game slate, but I'm saying I'm straight up crossing Dallas off my list.
It's not the worst idea I've heard.
Here's the problem: is obviously Heiskanen out, one of the best defensemen in the world. Harley has legitimately been a top 10 defenseman in the NHL over the last 2 years. Esa Lindell,
they call him the car got hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Team captain.
Esa Lindell, like genuinely one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. The rest of that blue line is god awful. Like, if you take Heiskanen, Harley, and Lindell out of that lineup, you're looking at top pair Ilya Lyubushkin and Cody Ceci. You're looking at on your second pair, it's like Alex Petrovic and Matt Dumba. It is not even an NHL. Over half the blue line that would be left, I would say at least 4 out of the 6 defensemen left in the lineup are AHLers. And the other 2 defensemen are at best replacement level or third pair defensemen. It would legitimately be the worst defense group in the NHL. And I mean that seriously. Like, worse than San Jose, certainly worse than Chicago. It would be, you take Lindell and Harley out of that lineup with Heiskanen already out, it's the worst defensive group in the NHL. There's no one that can move the puck. There's no one that can defend. What is Dallas supposed to do in this game? So if assuming Harley and Lindell are both out, which it's looking like it's going to be, and I hate, like I said, I hate just crossing a team off. I think Dallas is an easy team to cross off here. I'm saying straight up, like, I'm not playing a single one of their forwards here tonight. I'm just not. On the Utah side, like, I have way, way, way more interest in Utah. Like, as it was with Harley and with Lindell in the lineup since the Four Nations break, Dallas 31st by shots against per 60 at 5-on-5, 31st by expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. Only Anaheim worse by both numbers. And that's with Harley and Lindell in the lineup. I have a feeling this is going to be a good game for Utah here tonight. So I am definitely in on the top line. Keller, Genther, and Cooley. Since the Four Nations, 3.7 expected goals, 69 shot attempts per 60. They're only shooting 5.5%, so the 5-on-5 scoring hasn't been great. But the top power play unit, which has Keller and Genther, has been excellent with Hayton there. They're not getting a ton of ice time, but at 17,900, I can live with that. It's when it's like 19,900 that it's tough to swallow, which is what is the problem with Dallas 1. So I really do like Utah 1 here. If you want to do a Utah power play stack, I think that's fine. But honestly, like, Logan Cooley has 24 shots in his last 10 games. Most of those games spent off the top power play unit. Like, he's still skating about 18 minutes a game. He's still getting pretty good ice time. He's still getting involved offensively. I would be kind of inclined just to leave that top line. Honestly, if you want a Josh stack, Utah here tonight, I think that's doable too. Like, do a top line, Schmaltz and Hayton, throw Sergachev on the blue line, and away you go. Like, I do think things with Casey DeSmith is starting. Dallas is probably missing all their defensemen. We know there's a flu running through the dressing room. This is lining up for like a fucking 6-1 like Utah beatdown or something like that. So I am pretty in on Utah tonight. I am pretty out on the Dallas Stars.
You hear that, Jake? Tonight we're soaking.
That's creepy.
Anyway, I had to get my mouth off the screen there because did you see my mouth moving? No, I didn't think so. Minnesota Wild with a 2.7 total heading into Vancouver. Whatever that team is has a 2.8 total. Minnesota going Kaprizov, Zook, Rossi, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Foligno. Vancouver, as far as we know, is going Garland, Suter, Hoglander, Besser, DeBrusk, Sasson. That's not how you say it, but that's how I say it. This is an important game for Minnesota. I don't want to say must win, but it is very important for them to get some points in this game.
Yeah, should mention they called up Ty Mueller, and it looks like Mueller's going to be playing between DeBrusk and Besser. Max Sasson, I don't even know. Frankly, he sounds made up. I don't even believe that there's an NHL player named Max Sasson. He's not in the lineup tonight, it looks like.
It's Sasson, and he's in the Beauty and the Beast. He lives in the castle. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't have a ton of interest here in Vancouver. Like, if anything, I'd go to that Suter, Garland, Hoglander line. Like, they've been fine. Suter and Garland have played fine together this year, but they're 15-1. And it's just, like, in that mid-range, like, at that point, like, give me an extra, little bit to go up to even, like, Minnesota 2. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't love Minnesota 2, but I don't love Vancouver really at all. I think, one-offs here and there are fine. One-off Besser. Talk about Quinn Hughes at the end, but I don't particularly love Vancouver here. If they get into your 27 max mix, I think that's fine. It's just this is a very important game for the Wild. They have their defenseman in.
Well, except for Spurgeon, right? Didn't he take a puck to the neck?
Yeah, Minnesota's guys have taken so many pucks to the face this year.
And Jake Middleton's out too, so they're down.
Well, Middleton, I think they said Middleton could play tonight. I don't. Well, either way, like, I don't think I'll be full stacking Vancouver in single entry. My interest is on the Minnesota side. I think Minnesota 1 is one of those lines I prefer over Montreal 1. They're 18,600 with a 14% top 2 stack, 8.2% projected ownership. None of these Vancouver lines really scare me defensively. Their penalty kill has been fine. That's the one thing that does worry me about playing Minnesota. Not that, like, Minnesota has a great power play anyway, but Vancouver still has a good penalty kill, but, Kaprizov, anytime you can get a low-owned guy like Kaprizov, it does interest me. He's only 8K. We've seen him at points this season be like 9,100. So, like, at that price and this line's price, I'm willing to take a chance at 8.2% projected. You want to go to the second line, like, that's fine. Like, Eriksson Ek, yeah, he had a hat trick in his first game back, but his biggest issue this season was shooting the puck. And, he scored a hat trick, great, but, like, this season, his shot rates haven't been great. So I do have a little bit of pause on that second line. I'd rather spend the extra 1,400 or whatever it is for the top line. So Minnesota 1 for me. Like, I don't hate Vancouver. I just don't think they're going to make it into my lineup.
Yeah. I can say the one line I'm not going to play from the Canucks is Besser, DeBrusk, Ty Mueller. One, like, Besser and DeBrusk, honestly, just really haven't been that good together. I was looking at their time without Vancouver's top 3 centers, Pettersson, Miller, In Hedel, 48 shot attempts, 2.3 expected goals. Like, they just haven't done anything. So for me, it'd either be Garland, Suter, Hoglander, or Sherwood, Ratu, and Dakota Joshua. They're at different price points. So it's, what does the rest of your lineup look like? Like, if you're going with a couple mid-price stacks, I think Suter, Garland, Hoglander's in play, if only because they have been good in a small sample. 3.1 expected goals, 66 shot attempts in a little over 45 minutes together. It's not a lot of ice time. You're looking at like basically 4 full games. 2 out of the 3 guys are on the top power play unit. Say what we will, Minnesota still generally doesn't have a good penalty kill. And the Vancouver power play still has Quinn Hughes. Suter will get like 21 minutes. Garland will get like 18 to 19 minutes. So like, they're still going to get a lot of ice time at home. And if you're looking for a filler, Ratu, Sherwood have actually been pretty good together this season. 105 minutes for Ratu and Sherwood, 61 shot attempts. 66 shot attempts, 3.4 expected goals per 60. Now, they've been bad defensively. I think that kind of goes without saying for a third line with Atu, Ratu, and Dakota Joshua on it. But they are fairly cheap. They have been good. They're a filler you can put in with Toronto or one of those 19K lines that you want to play. But I think I'm like you. There are a couple lines, like if I was in a 20 max, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll use Vancouver 3 as a filler in one of them or 1 or 2 of them. But like in a single entry, I think I'll look elsewhere. For me, it's Minnesota 1. Minnesota 1, 2.7 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals per 60 together this season. They all played 20 to 22 minutes last night. Like, they're going to get ice time because this team still has to win. Like, a loss here, and it's looking kind of sketchy for playoffs at least. So, like, a win here would go a long way. They're going to have to play a ton of minutes at 18,600. They're very reasonably priced. And it's not as if they're coming in with a ton of ownership, right? Montreal's coming in with a lot less, but this line is projected at 8.2% ownership, under 10% for a perfectly correlated top Minnesota line, facing Vancouver, missing a ton of players. I do like Minnesota 1 here tonight. If you want to dip down to Minnesota 2, I think that's okay, but I'd rather kind of just pony up the $1,400 for the perfectly correlated top line that has Kirill Kaprizov on it. So for me, it goes Minnesota 1, maybe like Vancouver 3 if you need a filler, but it's the Minnesota side that I really have interest in for single entry.
Yep, agreed. Nashville Predators with a 2.4 total heading into Sin City. The Golden Knights have a 3.5 total. Vegas going Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Saad, Stone, Barbashev, Howden, Carlson, Smith, Holtz. Nashville going Forsberg, Stamkos, Leroux, Bunting, Evangelista, O'Reilly, Marchessault, Vrana, Svechkov. They did move Marchessault up in their last game, I think. It doesn't really matter. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking Nashville here. Like, Forsberg at 7,500 would be the guy I would one off, but like at that point, like, I'm just spending the extra 500 and one offing Kaprizov. You know what I mean? So, all right. Get to that in a second. Yeah, absolute psycho. Get a $4,000 medical bill. Doesn't know that Cliffy is quoting Happy Gilmore. I'll tell that story when I'm reading the super chat. But, yeah, like, I'm pretty much out on Nashville. The one guy I would one off is Forsberg. And like I said, like, he's only $500 cheaper than Kaprizov. And it's not like Kaprizov's going to be like 38% here tonight. So I'm just more likely to one off Kaprizov there. My interest is on the Vegas side. I don't particularly believe that a Brett Howden, Barbashev, Mark Stone line is going to be 20.2% projected. I will say I have not played them recently, so maybe they could be. I just have a little bit of a mental block on Brett Howden being over 20%. They've been fine, I guess. Like, Howden and Barbashev have been fine this season. But, like, if I'm going to play Vegas, there's no way I'm not going to play Dorofeyev, Hurdle, and Saad at 15.5. they've been really good in 125 minutes together this season. 3.4 expected goals, 3.8 actual. Get 2 of the 3 on the top power play. That's where I'm going. Yeah, they're coming in at 17.5% projected, but they have almost a double of a top 2 stack percentage. If you want to leave off Saad and add in, Carlson or Stone for a power play stack, that's fine. I don't think you really need to go out of your way to power play stack Vegas, though. So for me, it would be Vegas 2. I guess I'm fine with Vegas 1, the Howden line. I just like that ownership is a bit baffling to me. I'd rather just go to the better line.
Yeah, on the Nashville side, the only line I really have any interest in is bunting Evangelista O'Reilly. Like the Vegas penalty kill hasn't been great most of the season. It's been getting a little bit better. They don't take a ton of penalties. And that bunting Evangelista O'Reilly line's actually been good, which, for a Nashville line, there haven't been a lot of those. Now, they've only played a little over 55 minutes together, but 72 shot attempts, 3.7 expected goals per 60. The goals aren't there yet. They're shooting 5%. But at 14,400, like they're one of those lines that you can fit in with a Utah one, with a Winnipeg one, with Minnesota or something like that, and still leave yourself enough room to go get a couple reasonably priced defensemen. You don't really have to punt. So I don't mind Nashville too. Gonna be honest, like in that price range, I might just pay up and go play Winnipeg. But there's honestly not a lot in that like 13 to 15K range that I'd really want to play. You're looking at like the Vancouver line, stuff from Seattle, the Dallas depth, like those types of things, like just really not stuff that I'm really interested in. So that's why I would have a bit of interest in the Ryan O'Reilly line, but this game is Vegas for me. It's funny. I played that Dorofeyev Hurdle Sod line the other night. They played extremely well. They generated a ton of offense. They just didn't score. And it sucks because I also had the Rangers with Kevin Korchinski getting as a one-off defenseman scoring a goal. And I had a pretty good start to the night. And then, Vegas didn't really do much, but I don't feel bad playing that second line because they did have a pretty good game other than getting on the score sheet. Dorofeyev Hurdle Sod, 17.5%. I think one thing you can do is like take out Saad and put in Stone, or take out Saad and put in Carlson, make it more of a power play stack, kind of dilute that ownership a little bit. Carlson's going to get a ton of minutes. Vegas 2, I do have a lot of interest in. I will also shout out Vegas 3 here. Carlson, Smith, and Holtz. Carlson and Holtz have played 160 minutes together this season, 66 shot attempts, 2.9 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. And Carlson and Smith have been good since Smith got back. Now, this trio obviously hasn't played a lot. That's why I'm looking at 2-man samples. But you're looking at this line going up against some pretty bad defensive lines from Nashville, and they're priced as a filler. So if you want a line to pair with your 18, 19K lines, I think Vegas 3 is very much in play here tonight, but Vegas 2 is easily my favorite line in this game.
Yep. Before we move on to the next game, we have a $200 super chat from Daily Deposit Frostback, otherwise known as Tyler Tennell. Says, thanks for another great season, boys. Not just win-wise, fun year in the Discord, great shows all year, and learned a lot DFS-wise. Already looking forward to next season, Josh and Cliffy forever. And while we're at it, Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier forever. Much love, gents. Fun in the Discord, you say. This guy wins a Patrick Laine jersey in like a mystery box, and he goes, hey, Cliffy, what size jersey do you wear? Cliffy responds like 3 hours later. He goes, 44 long, and my right arm's a little bit longer than my left. And he goes, damn, man, it's a size 50. I don't know what's funnier, that he didn't know that it was a movie quote, or he thought 44 long was a jersey size. But I do really appreciate the super chat. You've been a consistent member in the Discord, in my DMs for 2 seasons now. We have to show each other our lineups for feng shui purposes. Otherwise, we lose money. Apparently, that's what many people are telling me. But you're nuts for sending that super chat, and that just reminds me that I want to apologize for EMAC because every day I'm like, yeah, I'm going to submit the super chats today, and now I'm just going to wait till the end of the season. EMAC is going to be like, you suck, because I'm terrible at formatting them. But thank you so much for the super chats.
Yeah. When you paused after you said we send DMs and show each other's, and then you paused for a couple seconds, I was really wondering what the next words out of your mouth were going to be there. But yeah, thanks a lot, Prospect. We certainly appreciate the super chat. We certainly appreciate having you in the Discord. You're the type of subscriber, type of member, type of person that we want to have in that Discord, helping people out. Always happy to talk hockey with whomever. Glad that you had a good season. We're not done yet. Still a few slates to go for the regular season, and then a big playoff push. Hopefully we can help you out a little bit in the playoffs as well. But thanks a lot for the super chat. We certainly really do appreciate the support.
It is nice to see you get some run good after the 18 months of literally stacking against every goalie you put into your lineup. I've never seen a run like that, positive or negative. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen. Legitimately. St. Louis Blues with a 2.9 total. Heading into Seattle, the Kraken have a 2.6. So I'm surprised at the St. Louis total because Seattle sucks. I know Holloway's out.
So's Broberg too.
Yeah, it's kind of important. Those Oilers that they got are very important pieces to the puzzle on that team. But anyway, St. Louis going Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Shen, Snuggerud. Doesn't St. Louis suck too? Well, no.
Not really. I think they've been like a top 5 team in the league since Christmas.
Since Jim Montgomery got there, like them missing Holloway and Broberg tonight definitely bring them down a peg. But I don't really understand the St. Louis hate, because if you look by most metrics, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league, and they've been really good offensively this year too. Holloway is a big part of that, and he's out tonight. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, they're 5th in the league by points percentage since January 1st. It's a 41 game span. So,
yeah, I mean, they just straight up was like the coach. They've legitimately fired their coach to go get Jim Montgomery, and they've been a great team since he's taken over. They do need to win here tonight. It is an important game for the Blues. I do like Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich here tonight, and they haven't played a ton together this season, but they did play a ton last season. They played 140 minutes so far this season, 3.3 expected goals, 3 actual. We always talked about it last year when they're together and they don't get a ton of ownership. They're always in play. I know they're going to be missing Broberg, and he's one of their better puck-moving defensemen, but Cam Fowler is still in the lineup, and Cam Fowler has been actually ridiculously good for the Blues. I was kind of surprised, but he has been really, really good for them. Anytime Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich together, I have interest. They have a 16.9% top 2 stack, 10% projected ownership. They are 19-2. This is one of those lines in that range that I do really like. Their power play units are kind of a mess, but it's fine. Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich is the best 3 players they can put together on a line. There isn't anything that really concerns me coming back from Seattle, even if it's the Beniers line. That line has slid defensively since Kakko's gotten there. If it's a Chandler Stevenson line, we've talked enough about Chandler Stevenson's deficiencies. None of these lines really scare me defensively. I do really like St. Louis 1. If you want to go to St. Louis 2, I think that's fine. I do worry about them without Holloway. And like Neighbors and Shen have played a bunch together this season, and it's not great. They are only 13-6, and Snuggerud's on the top power play unit for whatever that's worth. But for me, it's probably St. Louis 1 or bust. Like, there's no real need for that St. Louis third line. Sundqvist, Bolduc, Dvorsky.
I think Dvorsky's getting the night off, and it's Matt Joseph there, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to one-off Bolduc, fine, whatever. But for me, it's St. Louis 1. On the Seattle side, none of these lines really are really good, we'll say. Like, I think the one line that would interest me, I don't think, I'm trying to talk myself into it, would be the Beniers line, but I just don't want to play Seattle here. Like, one-offs, I think, would be the route I would go. A one-off Eberle, he's 3,700. One-off McCann, I guess, at 5,800. But I really don't like. St. Louis has one of the worst penalty kills in the league, and I could get behind a team with a semi-decent power play here. But Seattle's power play is so bad that, like, how good of a spot really is it? So I think it would be one-offs for me, and my favorite line in this game is St. Louis 1.
Yeah, there are only two lines in this game I really have interest in. One of them is St. Louis 1, obviously. No, they haven't played a lot together this season, and you mentioned their numbers for the full season. Their numbers under Jim Montgomery have been really good. They played a little over 100 minutes together since Montgomery got hired. I think it was November 24th, 23rd. 62 shot attempts, 3.5 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Those are just elite numbers. Like that. That's like Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman type stuff. That's how good they've been. The power play is a different story. Thankfully, the Seattle penalty kill is not very good. These guys will also get ice time, right? Like St. Louis needs to lock up a playoff spot. If they lose here tonight, Calgary's only 3 points back with 2 games in hand on the Blues. So St. Louis winning here tonight would go a long way to locking up a playoff spot. They're all going to play 20-plus minutes, especially with Holloway out. So I really do like St. Louis 1 here tonight, 19,200. Their top 2 stack percentage is third on the board. So there are plenty of lines in that 12, 13K range that you can pair with them. So I have no problem going to St. Louis 1. I do think they're one of the best lines on the board here tonight. Probably just overall, like matchup agnostic and everything, I would probably have them as the number 2 line on the board, behind Toronto. Winnipeg obviously facing Chicago, so that is what it is. But the St. Louis top line is great. There's one line on Seattle I might have a little bit of interest in, and it's Ray McCann Burakovsky. 150 minutes together, 2.8 expected goals, 66 shot attempts per 60. 4.9 actual goals, shooting 15.5%. Obviously, that's way too high. They can still be around 3 goals per 60 minutes. I'll only mention them because at 13,500, they're priced at a spot where you can play them with your Dallas, with your Utah, with your Winnipeg, like those types of things. I think that's the one line I would have interest in here tonight on the Seattle side. But for me, this is easily a St. Louis 1 game. They are, I think after Toronto, I think they're the second best line on the board.
Well, also, Grubauer is confirmed.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah. He sucks.
Let's
talk about defensemen here. We have no Makar, no Werenski, so I don't really know what to talk about in this top range. But Quinn Hughes is leading in terms of price. The only 2 guys 6K and above are Quinn Hughes and Josh Morrissey. Like, I think Quinn Hughes is fine. If Vancouver wins, he's obviously going to be involved and plays heavy minutes, but he doesn't block shots, which is a problem. He has 65 blocks in 65 games. So I'm more likely to go to Josh Morrissey here if I'm spending up. I don't think it's super necessary to spend up here. I'm more of a mid-range I'm more in the mid range here tonight, or the cheap guys. Like if I was going to spend up, it would be for Morrissey, but I don't think it's super necessary to go all the way up there tonight.
Yeah, Quinn Hughes obviously leads the projections by a wide margin. He's grading out as a much better play than Morrissey. I don't mind Morrissey. Honestly, I still don't mind Morrissey as a one-off here tonight just because it is such a good spot against Chicago. But if I have to pay $6,100 for Morrissey or $6,800 for Quinn Hughes, I'm paying $6,800 for Quinn Hughes. So he's the expensive defenseman. There are a lot of guys in that mid-price range I'd want to play. Like no Alex Pietrangelo for Vegas. So Shea Theodore, obviously, with the power play time and with maybe some extra minutes, I think makes a lot of sense. Brandon Montour, if the Seattle power play can get there, it is a good power play spot for Seattle, so I don't mind Montour. But Mikhail Sergachev, certainly for Utah against Dallas. Lane Hudson, it is a good power play spot for the Habs. He's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes again here tonight. Like, I'm not a big Brock Faber guy, generally speaking, but if there's no Spurgeon and no Middleton and Minnesota needs to win, Faber's probably playing 30 minutes here tonight. So something to keep in mind there. Sean Dursey, certainly. Jonas Brodin, he's going to have to play a lot of minutes for Minnesota as well. I hate to say it, but Morgan Riley, just because the Leafs are going to go with 5 defensemen, Riley might actually play like 22 or 23 minutes here tonight. But I think Brodin and Dursey, especially in that 4 to 5K range, stand out for me. The rest of the Leafs blue line, depending on your price point, like Chris Tanev, $3,700, Simon Benoit, and Philippe Myers are both min price. I think they're all in play. I hate to say it, but Cody Ceci is probably going to have to play 23, 24 minutes tonight, assuming Lindell and Harley are out. Same thing with Lyubushkin from Dallas. Adam Larson, I think, is fine. Alex Carrier is projecting reasonably well for Montreal. Nick Blankenberg for Nashville, not a great spot, but he's under 3K, still getting top power play time. And I'll mention Declan Chisholm as well from Minnesota. Again, with no Spurgeon and Middleton, somebody's got to play minutes, and I think Spurgeon might end up their number 3 defenseman here tonight.
Did you say Sam Rinzel? Or no? I missed that.
No, I didn't, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's been playing heavy minutes, and he's on the top power play now. If it is Comrie, Sam Rinzel's fine. He looks like Sam Rinzel. He looks like the guy who plays the Punisher. But anyway, let's talk about goalies. They all suck. See you tomorrow. I guess if I was spending up, it would – I don't really want to spend up here. But if I was spending up, it'd be for Aiden Hill at 8,300. I think Stolarz is fine. He's had a great season. In the mid-range, it would be, the trio. I guess Vejmelka is in the low range, but Bennington and Gustafsson, 7,600 and 7,500. Spending down Vejmelka at 7,300 against a depleted Dallas team is fine. I don't particularly want to go below that, but I guess if it is Spencer night at 7K, it's fine. I don't particularly love it. I don't really want to go below Vejmelka at 7,300. Dobish is fine. A Newen is whatever. Knight is whatever. If I had to pick one of those guys, it'd be Knight 1, Dobish 2, and Newen 3, but I really don't want to go below Vejmelka. Yeah,
Aiden Hill is the top projected goalie on the board here tonight. 13.9 DK points. We have Hellebuck because Winnipeg is not confirmed, but I'm 95% sure it's going to be Eric Comrie here tonight. So Hill's going to be the number 1 goalie. I don't mind Stolarz. He has been really good this season. Whatever deficiencies the Leafs have defensively, he's been able to kind of patch them up. So Hill and Stolarz at the top for me. I also don't mind Spencer Knight here, considering his price. One of the things that has made Winnipeg such a bad team to play against for DFS is that their power play's been elite for 65 games, and then Velarde got hurt, and it's just not been the same since. So if Chicago can kind of just not fall apart at 5-on-5, Knight could have a good game. I'll also shout out Jordan Binnington. I'm not sure if it's going to be him or Hofer tonight. I think it's going to be Binnington.
It's Binnington, yeah.
Yeah. St. Louis basically just gets into trouble when their penalty kill falls apart. And if their penalty kill falls apart against Seattle Kraken, that's one of those sucks to suck type of things. But as long as Seattle can be held off on the power play, and I think they will be, I think Binnington could have a good night. So for me, it's like Hill, Stellaris, Knight, Binnington.
Yep. We will be back. I think our last 2 shows of the regular season will be Tuesday and Thursday. So stay tuned for that. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go with a guy that you're pretty high on, and I would dare say is maybe your favorite player, Alex Iafallo.
Yeah. I'm going to go get his face tattooed on my quad after this and hopefully he'll sign it. My favorite player. I'm going to get really spicy because why not? Since you're going gas can, I'm going gas can. Kyler Yamamoto.
That would be something else. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you for the super chats and all that jazz. We'll see you in the Discord. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.